My name is John Caldwell, and this is a video that I have to make for my Intro to Emergent Media class. And I just have to talk about a subject related to media, and my subject of choice is the decline of newspapers, so print media and print news. As you probably have noticed yourself, newspapers are in a very obvious decline over the years. I remember as a kid they were definitely pretty popular. I'd go out every morning when I was younger, and I'd see the little newspaper wrapped in plastic in people's driveways from the news, from the mail truck would throw them, or the paper boys on the bikes would throw them. But they don't do that anymore. It's not a thing, I think. It might be a thing somewhere, but it's not very widespread anymore. So newspaper journalists, as a job and as a population, really have decreased by 39% since 1989. I know that. So those are the people who write the newspapers in the first place. But if that's not bad enough, newspaper revenues in general have dropped 50% over the last decade. So these companies are struggling with money. And why they're declining is the digitalization of news. So that being like Apple News, Newsweek, all those apps on your phone. It's so easy to access. You just open it and you get the news right from the source, right in your face, in your hand. It's so easy. And obviously with that, why would you want to have paper newspapers delivered to your house? Newspapers delivered to your house. It's redundant. And it's kind of sad. But to say they're declining isn't to say they're dead. There's still some success from newspaper companies. I know that the Houston Defender, which is a newspaper company, was able to raise money. They raised $1,000 over COVID-19, like the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. They were able to raise over $100,000 for themselves. And New York Amsterdam is still a very trusted local newspaper company with still having over 1 million subscribers. And I think the only success they're still having is the appeal to older generations. That seems to be a theme across a lot of different subjects. The older generations are still stuck in their old ways. Not to say old ways, but just in their ways in general. They still have newspaper subscriptions and they still read the newspaper. I know my dad does, which is kind of nice because it's nostalgic. He would always go get the newspaper every morning and say hi to the neighbors and stuff when I was a kid. So it's also kind of sad that newspapers are declining for that reason, because they would be ways the community was connected. Local news would be shared, like how the football team did over at school, the school you go to, or a wedding happened nearby, and it might be people getting married, and you would hear about it in the newspaper, and it would be really nice, and you'd be socially connected with people better. Apple News doesn't do that, obviously. Apple News is a global news. Same thing with Newsweek. All those apps don't really have that charm local newspapers have. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say. They're in an obvious decline, and I feel like over the next few years, they might even be completely gone. Who knows?